Eastern Time. It's the Hour of Empower live stream. I'm so happy to have Dave Snell back with us as our guest host. And we may be getting Kelly in based on availability. So, with that, like I say, the word of the day is effort. Chat is wide open. We really depend on chat to make us more relevant and direct our thoughts and ideas towards maybe providing some quality takeaways that you can actually put to use and justify your time, effort, and thought today. So, with that, I'll turn it over to Dave. Dave can bring you up to date on what's he been up to and his initial thoughts on effort. So, with that said, welcome to the show again, Dave.
Well, thank you again for having me, Don. It's always a pleasure. First, nothing really new, like I said, pre-show is really happening here. Just continuing the great work that I try to do. I guess the biggest news is I did another podcast that was released today, and I'll be sharing on my page on LinkedIn here, where I talk about my journey through mental health issues and overcoming them. Which I think, now that I think about it, I'm glad I brought it up the way I did, is it ties very much into effort. I hadn't thought about this. This is kind of off the cuff. Is it took a struggle to then decide I'm going to put in the effort, the work to overcome these issues and not let them drive me. And it, effort is a very personal, driving force in our lives, and we have to be willing to sacrifice something, whether it's an old us, an old way of thinking, an old physical, impression of what we portray, to make a move to be something different. Potentially, that's one way of thinking about effort in my mind. And when I first heard the word effort that we were going to do today, I thought about my gym time just this morning. Oh gosh, I've got to put in the effort to really make the change in my body and my mind that I want to have the end effect for my long-term goals, physically and mentally. So effort's a great word, and I really appreciate that we're doing it today.
Well, when I thought of effort, I thought of you because I know how much effort you put into your running, how much effort you put into your new preoccupation with helping others, and especially in transitions.
Yep.
And I think the key is knowing it can be done because other people are doing it, and there's more capabilities and access to tools and applications just like live streaming that maybe haven't been leveraged in the past and can create that breakthrough for someone. And I really think effort is based on getting beyond a plateau.
Yeah.
Everybody's at a certain point, maybe their baseline, maybe their cellar, whatever, however you want to characterize it. But at what point does the ceiling stop you from getting any further? And that's the ceiling you put on yourself based on either confidence, I believe, or not really going that extra mile, spending more time criticizing yourself than helping yourself do something.
Yeah.
So, in my opinion, what I do every day, either I'm talking or I'm walking, but I'm never sitting around thinking about what is going on around me, because I think keeping busy keeps everything moving a little faster. And when I'm walking, I think better, because, when you can enjoy the activity of, let's say, doing something versus maybe the comfort of not doing something. So again, it's kind of the short-term pain for long-term gain, or short-term pain for long-term gain. It's really a choice. So yeah, I think effort has a lot to do with it. We've got Ethel Labi with us. Sorry if I didn't pronounce it right, from Nigeria. We've got Anwar coming in. Great. Always welcome. The messages we have here are don't need a passport. Everything is based on really constructive, positive direction, motivation, and that's more importantly empowerment, is being able to identify something if you can do it, it will do what you need to get things done. And you can always redirect time because a lot of people with effort say, I don't have the time. And my feeling is everybody's got the same amount of time. It's what are you doing with it and what is it doing for you?
Yeah.
And if you looked at minutes as dollars, if you put $1 in a machine and got a quarter back, how many more dollars would you have to put in to understand you're losing money every time you do this?
Yeah.
If you look at time and you say, every time I do this, it eats up something that could have went towards something fortifying or for someone else even, right? If I can't help myself, can I help another? And that's better than helping nobody with, the reserve you have. Carl's here. Carl's going to be starting out next Wednesday. Great to have Carl. Carl, just like Dave, have kind of advanced into the collaboration group. And the whole idea is to create a lot more effort in the right direction to get more immediate results. And what I'm so proud of is people who have just organically grown. I always mention Harvey now with his franchise show. He's been at it 8 weeks. He's the #1 franchise event on LinkedIn, and there's 80 of them. And how did that happen? Well, must have put the effort in, must have figured out what everybody wasn't doing. And I think that's the key is modeling. Not everybody's an inventor. Not everybody's a creator. Not everybody's a discoverer, but people can take notes. What's your thoughts on that, Dave?
I was just going to interject is, there's no problem or should be no issue with copying somebody, being inspired by somebody to help pull you along. We don't all have the same experiences to drive to the same end result. So we have to pull from a network. And I think I've said in here before, and I was talking about a couple of weeks ago with some friends, is, the beauty of something like LinkedIn Live or Zoom, even to a certain extent, is it's taking us back to the connection and the people to share ideas and experiences because we've become so isolated. And I won't say the pandemic. This was pre-pandemic. It was social media climb of everybody just on their Facebook or Instagram and just disconnected. And these things bring us back so that we can share ideas to get to elevate ourselves to a new plane that we don't have if we're not interconnected. You and I talking a couple of times in these events has led to a collaboration on how do I build from there. Whereas if I had just texted you or emailed you, there's no interpersonal, there's no relationship there that I wouldn't have put in the effort to say, this is going to be worth it. I don't see the result if I just email you. But having a conversation, sharing ideas really opens our minds to new experiences and opportunities. There's always the old saying that people need to travel more, whether it's within our own country or more importantly, externally, go international to really understand that there are other experiences out there that will help you understand what other opportunities exist. And I think, again, something like this has helped me put in perspective what the effort would take to elevate my progress.
Okay, I think that's all very valid. It makes a lot of sense. What I've learned after doing enough of these shows is everybody is enough wherever they are. Most people are waiting to get better. That's never going to happen by waiting anyways.
Right.
If it would have, you would have got there by now probably. So how much more waiting, if it's been all your life, is it going to take? And whatever that is will happen when it is. Why decide to wait for a ride when you got a car right in front of you?
Yeah. Or you have your own feet.
That exactly. And that's what everybody says. Start where you are with what you got and let that show you where you need to change to go.
Yeah.
Until you get into something, right? You take your car into a garage, they say, well, until I put it on a scope or something, we won't know.
Yeah.
When you put it on a test, it doesn't fix it. It just says, here's what you're dealing with. And I think there's so many people dealing with so much that someone else who's dealing with the same thing as the same type of person, right? Because people would rather get advice from a peer than some authority.
Yeah.
Right? It's not as friendly and it's kind of dismissive in a way, or at least sets boundaries or insulation. And I think when people have been waiting for the mic and now there's a mic right in front of them and it's their mic, not someone else's who they get a benefit from, you know, that's what I see. People telling their story in a way that's positive. But just telling your story in your way could be the most depressing thing anybody ever heard, right? Tragedy without triumph is tragedy.
Yeah.
Right? And you don't want to spread more of that if your motivation is to empower people. But getting back to Carl is coming back next Wednesday. Actually, we're talking right after the show. He actually invited a guest he thought would be great to come on. And now the idea, not the idea, but it's going into motion, is going beyond word of a day to theme of the day, right? And do it around the people here. So like Jeffrey Lackey, who's every Friday so far, he's a leadership guy. Well, it's Friday leadership. Today, I'm thinking more in transition Wednesday. A lot of people are going through transitions in relationships and career and finance and health, right? And then why not build around the people who are those people? So again, bring in more alignment, bring in more definition, because people would rather say, tell me more about what it is before I have to decide to do it. Right? If you just say it's a show, well, great. If it's a word, well, that's a little bit better. But if it's like, I know every Tuesdays are business Tuesdays and we're going to have business people, you know, why not take that to the level? So a lot of change is incremental. And not only that is when you see other people doing things well, you say, well, I can integrate that. So many people worry about people stealing their ideas.
Yeah.
Where'd that idea you have come from? Someone else, probably. Something else. You weren't born with it, I don't think, and it just popped up later on. So the key is collaboration where you're not stealing, but you're sharing. Right? You're saying, hey, give me a piece of that. I got a lot of this. Take a hunk of it and do
Let me speak for Kelly real quick, because the couple times I've seen her on or I've been on with her in here or in meetings is where did the Hour of Empower come from? It was just you and Kelly talking. And then it elevated. And now it's elevating again to a theme, from nothing to a word to a couple of simple same people week to week or day to day to a new theme. And you grow through collaboration and putting in the work to understand what it is that's going to make you better.
Exactly.
That takes effort. That takes mental process and physical desire to do something different.
Oh, and with that said, it came when it came. So when I look back at the program, and I can look back, YouTube has 651 of these shows in one shape or another. And I could look at my first show or second show, and I do once in a while. I can't look at it for long because it is so early. But, when I was doing it, I was proud of it.
Yeah.
Right? So when you were doing little things without knowing anything, you're probably still having fun with it, even though you never understood. If you had a golf club and a golf ball, you could smack it around. And to you, that could be golfing until you actually get on a course. And I think with anything, it's the novelty of it. It's the enjoyment of learning something like buying a puzzle or a model airplane. I know my grandkids are into Legos and it becomes a project. And some of these things are, I mean, they're expensive.
Yep.
They did the space shuttle lately and they did the Back to the Future car. But it was really cool because it was a family activity and it was effort in a collaborative way.
Yeah.
The jigsaw puzzle putting together is only as fun as the people working on it, right?
Yeah.
If you got 3, 4 people with you, you can make a party out of it. But anyways, don't want to forget about Carrie. Carrie's the joke around here. 663 days, no coffee or caffeine. I don't know for sure, but after that many days, I think you're in the clear.
Yeah.
So I think that you're doing great. Carl says, as an entrepreneur with a total DIY genetic flaw, I've learned that there is no idea that I may have, no matter how brilliant, that cannot be improved by sharing with others. And when you give to others, you open up space for the next idea.
Yeah.
You don't know, hold on to something when something's better right in front of you. You release that and you accept that, and that's how you climb a mountain.
And that takes a personal effort and change mentally to say, okay, I can accept that what I've done is not good enough and can be improved upon, and I want it instead of being rooted in my way or the highway. It takes a mental shift to say I will change to be better.
Well, not only that, you have to get to the point where I have to change.
Yeah.
To do better, because whatever was your goal, once you've achieved it, it's not as challenging anymore. It gets easier, right? If you do a mile, it might take you forever to get there, but after a while, you want to go to 2 miles because you're not getting the same feeling. And what I did notice when you look at people like Tony Robbins and some of these legends, they have a whole conditioning program. There was a show where I saw Tony, and I'm not a big fan of anybody because I'm more of a meat and potatoes guy, and some of these people, and I give them all the credit in the world for doing the work and being successful. I mean, he's got a regimen for 2 hours before he goes on the stage.
Yeah.
He has to go into a quiet place. He has to do some meditation. He's got some people, nutrition. I mean, when he hits that stage, he's got to be 100% right on because he's got 10,000 people looking at every little thing. And he also knows it's easier and better to do it that way. And so one has to have their own program to get out of themselves before they get into somebody else.
Yeah.
Right? And don't take your stuff there because it's not fair. But you can take the best stuff for them there, and understanding it's a responsibility and accountability. It's not a choice at that point. You made a commitment or an obligation or something for people to show up and be there for you. And a lot of people pay for these things. You can forget about yourself and everything, especially social media. When you make it about it and not you, everything gets easier. Mirjana's here from Serbia. Actually, my relatives are from Serbia, so glad to see somebody who would know. Beverly's here. Well, we'll say
Hi, Beverly.
Exponential Line in Progress. Beverly's just great. Was here on Tuesday, and just phenomenal individual who's really finding a great opportunity, sharing what she has been doing for so long, but doing it in a more expansive, amplified way. You can talk to more people in less time that are related to you in advance. You've got a tailwind. Carl comes back with, I believe nothing is perfect and everything can be improved. Each improvement represents an opportunity. Well, here's the other thing, and you're so right, Carl. Whatever you're thinking, whatever you're doing is impacted by everything around you, and nothing's slowing down. Nothing's standing still. So if you decide to hold your hand, more hands are getting played. You know what I mean? When you get out of the I can control things, And when you learn how much you don't know versus thinking how much you do know, that lends itself to being humble, right? Until you had your last right idea, were you thinking you were wrong all the time? You were probably thinking you were just as right with that idea until you found a better one. And who says another one isn't coming up the road? So why hold on to thoughts? Yes, you need abundant thinking and keep opening up to change. Well, the default to success is no one else playing. It's not the best, the fastest, the smartest, none of that. It's ones who show up every day and work at something and continue to come there with a smile on their face, excited for what they're going to learn and now what they're going to be able to do tomorrow. Because if you got to show up tomorrow, and that's a fact, what are you going to do to make it a better day for showing up? Because that's what'll make you a quitter. It's tough. I don't like it. It's not fun anymore. The people aren't friendly anymore. Well, so what? What do you think? The next thing you think of is going to be any different? I was reading this book, and it was by Earl Nightingale. And he was one of the early guys in the 40s and 50s. One of his claim to fame, if you could say that, is he was one of the few sailors who survived to Arizona.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and he was in a special place. There was only 100 of them or less. And anyways, because of the GI Bill of Rights, he went into learn broadcasting and then became a Chicago broadcaster. And then before anybody, he decided to go independent, moved to Arizona. So make a long story short, him and Conant created Conant Nightingale, which is one of the biggest professional tapes and CDs and stuff. And he has a tape, called a CD called or whatever, The Essence of Success. Anyways, in it, he always talks about stories and relates to Think and Grow Rich quite a bit. And a guy comes to a town who had just entering the town. He asked some old guy sitting on a bench, "Hey, tell me about this town. How are the people here?" And the guy said, "Well, how are the people where you're from?" "Well, they were angry and hateful and miserable." He said, "Well, you're going to find those same people here." And the next guy walks up and says to the same question, "How are things here? How are the people?" He says, "Well, how are the people here from?" "Oh, they're very nice, friendly, generous." "Well, we got those people here." So what it really says is whatever you're aiming for is going to take you closer to that target than if you aim for something that would benefit you more. Or like this show, getting back to that question, is how did this happen? Well, it's because of all the people. I haven't changed that much in a year. As myself, I've learned a lot, met a lot, but everybody brought a brick to the wall. Like the word of the day was Charles Caldwell from Hong Kong. And like 8 months ago, he said, he was on doing a show. And I got to give him credit. It's 11 p.m. Hong Kong time when this goes on, and for him to come here that often. And he said, would it be okay if I came up with a word to focus on? And I said, great. And you know what? I take 99% of everybody who says, can I do something? I say, great. Because I don't know, and as long as it's got good intention and purpose, and, people want an open field to play in, to work in. And
well, even last week, I sent you, "Hey, Don, have you thought about this word?" And you came back with, "Great minds think alike, Dave. We're doing that tomorrow." Oh, I totally missed that. Okay. But, I was dumb not having remembered, but we had a collaboration there to say, okay, we're thinking about how we can make things better.
Well, absolutely. And actually, now that you say that, the word of the day was going to be supposed to be humble, because I remember it was humility. And I said, we're doing that the next day. Why don't we do humble? And then because of doing as many of these, no excuses, I forgot and said effort because I thought of you. But, it's just a word, and it's where you take it and how you come back to it if necessary. But again, a little more definition always helps. Carl says you're always faced with situations where you have never done something before and you do not know if you can do it. But unless you try, you will never know. That's true. And I guess experience goes a long way, because being an entrepreneur, never working for anybody except when I was 15 for a couple of years as a grocery guy, um, I paid for everything, or I gained from everything. Right?
Yeah.
So if I made a mistake, it cost me. If I did something good, it benefited me. But I also knew it wasn't about me, it was always about them, whether it was the customers, whether it was the teammates that we were with. And I was the first to pay and the last to get paid. But I was happy because I was doing something and I was able to do whatever I wanted to do at a split minute's notice. And what you find is being agile today, being responsive, being able to make fast moves before anybody else can, is always going to put you at first in the line. Now, whatever you do with first in line, hopefully will teach you how to get better at it. But I've seen so many people are sitting on everything, but they don't have themselves with them. They got everything packed up in the car, ready to go, and they're fighting with the passenger who don't want to get in the car.
Yeah.
Right? And you do that over and over again. So the game is between you and yourself. And
Yeah.
Go ahead, Dave.
Sorry, to your point, take it back to your story a few minutes ago about the perspective in the town. When you were talking about that, the first story that went through my mind was, I know I'm messing up the poem, but the end result is the same, is two prisoners were staring out their window. One saw bars, the other saw stars.
Mm-hmm.
It's what did you? And there's a picture on meme of two prisoners who are painting, and one paints bars and the other one paints the animals that he sees beyond the bars. What you want to see is what you will get. You will emanate that. You will emulate that feeling, and you'll receive it in the same way. What you want, you'll get, kind of thing. And it's karmic in a way. I really appreciate it. And I forgot where I was going to go right after that.
I think those are excellent points, and it is perspective. And what comes to mind is how discriminating people are with their food. Right? Yeah. If the toast hit the floor, some people will just throw it out. Right? If their eggs didn't come out just the way they wanted, they'll still eat them probably, but they're not going to be like, hey, I got to wait till tomorrow to get some really good eggs around here. But that's so simple and easy to see. But when people deal with their thoughts, they accept everything and they discount their thing. And no one says, well, what do I want to think about today? Like what I want to eat for dinner, or what clothes do I want to put on today? Some people can take 10 minutes going through stuff until they get the right match, right? And it's clothes.
Yeah.
And most of the stuff was tomato anyways. And so the point is some of the most important choices you have to make, which is what are your thoughts, and what are your thoughts going to create actions too? Because a thought without an action is just going to get replaced by another thought, probably without an action. And meanwhile, you're out of action.
Yeah, the idle mind, you've got to always be thinking and moving forward to some extent. I mean, there are times where reflecting backwards is okay, but understanding that you're trying to understand what happened so that you can then move forward. And you always want some forward progress at some point during the day. You don't want to be idle for too long. And really, I had this discussion yesterday in a mastermind of how often do I really sit and just think? Okay, not just, okay, what do I want to have for dinner, but what do I think I want? Where do I want my business to go? Where do I want my life to go? What do I want my goals to be? And that's an idle point with a little bit of reflection, but I know that in the end, it's going to drive me forward. And I need to identify the points where this is what's important, because it's important, I will put in the work to get to the end result, that ideal end state that I'm looking for. And understanding that any end state that I do get to is temporary, because it's going to want me to, I want to go to the next level. Because as you say, time is, precious commodity. I only have so much life, and I don't know what that end line is. I better live every bit of it I can until that day comes. I think, to Carl's point that's on the screen is, situations that we don't know if we don't try. I'll go back and make this a little bit personal. This is what I try to convey to people I talk to in the veterans community. You don't know what you don't know unless you go out and do it. I told myself for 27 years, I can't do a marathon. I cannot run further than so many miles. And it took the relationships that I've built through my time in the forces to say, look, I know a guy who runs a lot, and I need him to help pull me along until I'm sustainable on my own. And he got me through my first marathon. And then I said, okay, I can do it. And then last month, I struggled through my second marathon without him. I told him to run without me so I could really dig deep and say, I know now I don't need him, and I will still be able to finish my project, my marathon in this case. And that was my end goal. Well, now I've met my end goal. What's my next goal? Well, now I've got to look for the next challenge, doing it faster by myself, adding miles to longer races or more races to my training plan. So you've got to not rest on your laurels that you've accomplished. Like, I didn't say, oh, I did my marathon, I'm done, I don't need to do it again. No, there was a new challenge I wanted to experience, and now I'm going to go find it.
Well, that I think makes everything that you're doing in the present worthwhile, knowing there's a future to it.
Yeah.
And how much time you have is a lot to do with what are you spending your time on now, right? How are you spending your time? What are you eating? What are you exercising? What are you thinking? I mean, because, no one gets out of here alive, but people time out instead of wearing out, and, no one knows what time they have. So why waste any? And why worry about what may never happen anyways? And maybe give yourself credit for dealing with it when it shows up.
And what's the old saying? I want to slide into my grave as beat up as possible, having lived the best life anybody could think of. Something to that effect, not just sitting on my rocking chair kind of thing, but I want to live life and slide into home, into the grave, so to speak. And
well, what's fascinating that brings to mind is me and Ann were watching this documentary, you might want to call it, but it was The Blue Zones. It was on Netflix, and it identified areas in the world where they have a huge percentage of their population living to be 100 or more.
Yeah.
And, one was in Okinawa, one was in Greece, one was in, it was all over the world. And it was a gentleman who actually was a mountain climber, or really set records, was an Olympian. And he decided to study this. And he spent like 20-some years in these communities, getting to know them, learning how they live. And what they found out, it was a very simple formula, is they were in positions where they had to do something to get something done. Like they had to walk to the square every day to get water, or they had to, they all had a little garden. So it was really soft exercise. So people were living to be 95, and the food they were eating. But what was really fascinating is after he did all this, he decided, well, could you create one of these areas? Because what they found is 30 years later, Okinawa has the highest percentage of obese people now because of the fast food that came in and the processed food. food,
Oh, yeah.
right? When they were just eating their normal diet, everybody was healthy. So they took a city in Minnesota, 18,000 people, and created a blue zone. And what they did is they put community gardens in, they opened up sidewalks for people to get access. And they measured a year or two later, everybody gained like 3 years of longevity by their test. And now it's all over the country. Actually, Phoenix just got a program. So the point is you have control over certain things. And happiness was another measure of longevity. The other one was is elders were respected and kept in households. They said once you go into a facility, you lose 2 to 6 years based on that.
Fine.
And a lot of it was community, where they got everybody together to do races or puzzles or whatever. So, anyways, how do you take that information that's been proven and integrate that in whatever you're doing? Take those attributes. And I think that's the key. Anybody can have a show with an audience, but can you have a show with a community?
Yes, and I think the key words you threw out there was hope. And with community, you can build hope that something will be better tomorrow, or that something is possible today or tomorrow. Instead of what I see a lot of talking to even my neighbors' kids, teenagers and just graduated high school, is, well, I don't know what to do. There's no hope. What's the point if things are so bad in the world? Well, I found that after some time of communicating with them and showing them possibilities, there's hope. There is a way to succeed, regardless of all the other crap going on in the world. You have a control here on yourself and your perspective. And if you feel you've got hope, you have a way to move forward. And I'm not saying all the crap isn't there. I'm saying it should not impact you as deeply as it has. Let's just realize that there's some things you can't control. I can't control what's happening on the other side of the world. I can't control what someone else does down the street with their yard. I can control my certain little area and my actions and my responses to what people do. And if I can see, I thought about this a couple of weeks ago, is the light at the end of the tunnel. Well, sometimes that light isn't where you really need to end up. Sometimes you got to take another route. Sometimes there's a door in that tunnel that'll drive you to a different room to take you somewhere else. Find it. Actively search for them. When you get into this hopelessness room, the darkness, to get out of it, you've got to find another path, because that darkness will follow you until you open that door that leads to a better opportunity, metaphorically, obviously. But so many people are stuck in this drive of, oh, it's just so bad, I don't know what to do. And when they're given a little bit of hope to pluck out of there, they find the dome of darkness, I call it. There's that crack that just breaks it all down. I'm sorry, I'm a visual guy.
Very important, to visualize that. And again, I was always in situations that most people around me who had an interest in me would tell me I'm wasting my time, at the same, can't you see the light at the end of the tunnel? And I would say, I don't see the end of the tunnel yet.
Yeah.
Right. And I also know wherever I go that nobody would go is an advantage once I can get there, because that's a mountain they're going to have to climb one day. And the other thing is, you can always quit. Quitting's always there. But winning, succeeding, and trying isn't once you quit. And now you're at the starting line of something new. And every shining object looks great because you only see what looks great until you get into it. And, there is no substitute for hard work.
Yeah.
but it doesn't have to be unhappy or uncomfortable work. It just means intense. Just means you got to put in a little bit more impact. In the beginning, you got to drive momentum. Later on, you can slow up a little and it'll catch up to you, or maybe it'll drive you and you never have to drive it anymore. Maybe you built enough of that up. So I believe that making a list helps people, because then you look at it and either you cross it off or not, or you can just decide to batch it, right? At a certain point, like all this stuff is piling up. I got to make an appointment here. I got to buy this. I got to fix that. And a lot of stuff is like, I'll do it tomorrow. And at a certain point, when I had my business, I never left my desk unless it was clean.
Yeah.
I never had something to do tomorrow. Either I took care of it today, gave it to someone to take care of it, or tossed it. Because the same decision will be put off again. And pretty soon you got a desk full of notes and things to do. And then after a while, you don't even want to be in your desk anymore. Betty, who's here, great to have you, Betty. One might have to deprogram that today wants the kids to stay in the darkness, got to keep dancing to the sun. Well, what I would ask kids, and I got grandkids and I got kids, is who are you hanging out with to get this feeling? What are you listening to? In the older days, people used to say, if you want to know who someone is, ask them what they're reading.
Yeah.
And that'll tell you who they are. If they're reading comic books or whatever, no judgment, versus, hey, that's a classic, or that's something you can really live your life around.
Yeah.
It's change the channel. Because you can change the channel, you can't change what's on each channel.
Right.
But you can decide, I don't watch like horror films or crazy stuff right before I go to bed.
Yeah.
Right? If it's not a comedy or something pleasant, and people would always say, well, you got to look at both sides of everything, right? You got to see the bad and the good. And I said, I see enough bad. Yeah. I'll just look for good from now on. I know what the bad is. And where is that guilt to say I got to go backwards one step when I go forwards 2 steps?
What was Mr. Rogers' old line? It was his mom told him that when he saw something bad happening in the world, look for the rescuers.
Mm-hmm.
Look for the firemen, look for the police officers, look for the military guys, whatever it is, or just doesn't even have to be uniform, just the people who come to help. Because you can have a bad situation and there's always something or someone who's going to want to make it better.
Mm-hmm.
Look for that, not the dark. Look for the light that's coming to help pull that darkness out.
Well, and here's another key tool or trick, if you want to call it. It's not even a trick. Is be a good asker. Right? If you're in trouble, scream. I mean, if it's that kind of trouble, you're not going to upset anybody more than the situation you're in. And
Take it from a guy who has screamed for help personally, and I've gotten the help I needed from friends. I learned who my friends were. I learned who they weren't.
Absolutely. And it helps you.
I was in a bad place.
Well, and I think anytime, from the point of, I'm not sure if I add this much to this recipe or not, right? Do I need more salt or sugar or whatever? It's little things. Who could I call? And, that person would be glad to tell you. Well, if you said, hey, I loved your cinnamon cake and I'm trying to make one, I just wanted, it'd be an honor in most cases to be acknowledged. And, so many people have so much that they don't need or want or care about that could be so important to you. Yeah. Right? If someone says, hey, I got a basketball game coming up. I could use a basketball. It's like, I haven't played in 3 months. You could keep it, But I think when you ask, you do sort better. And sometimes you're surprised. I mean, I had people come to my assistance I never thought would ever show up. I never even thought I was in their mind. And I had so many people I almost lived with. When it came time, they evaporated on me.
Yeah, I I think if I may, Don, I mean, this goes back to the comments I was making earlier, community relationships. And let me take it even broader than that, where, someone had said, hey, I think it was Carl said, hey, happy Thanksgiving Eve. Here we are the day before Thanksgiving, and we have an opportunity to share our perspectives and our gratitude. And I want to tie it back even further to our word of the day, effort. Make the effort to reach out to somebody that you haven't talked to in a while. You think may need some help, whatever the reason may be, just to say, I was thinking of you. And I had this conversation yesterday in the mastermind I'm a part of, another mastermind I'm a part of, and it talk about gratitude. And I think it's different than making a Facebook post or an email. Even a text is fine, just to say, hey, how are you? Because it's individual. It's not a broadcast to the world of, hey, I'm wondering how somebody is via social media. It's, I'm thinking of you and I want you to know it. And it's personal. And that helps people. And too many times we get stuck in our mind of, well, I haven't talked to that person, I don't need to reach out to them anymore. Well, I don't know what they're going through is the bottom of the barrel kind of reasoning to, I just want them to know I'm thinking of them. I'm grateful that they're in my life and I want them to know that I'm thinking of them. And I relayed the story yesterday with this mastermind that I had I call him a kid, but he's like 10 years younger than I am. And I think I'm still young in my mind, at least. Anyway, I hadn't talked to Jay in about, it had been 10, 15 years almost. And he texted me and sent me a note, said, hey, Dave, I'm getting married for the first time. I'd really like you to be there. Wow. I hadn't talked to Jay in 10, 15 years. And he's thinking of me and he wants me there. And he explained to me later that it was the impact I'd had on him in our time in Iraq. And we'd sent maybe one or two notes afterwards, but he called me up and was like, hey, I really want you here. And when I got there, I didn't really think too much about it. I was grateful he asked me, but I didn't realize the impact. But everybody at that wedding, I knew nobody else other than the groom. I hadn't even met the bride yet. Everybody at that wedding said, oh, you're Dave from Iraq. You were his boss in Iraq. Oh my gosh, the things he said about you for 10 years. I'm like, that is something to be grateful for and made me feel better because he took the effort to explain to people and to ask me to be there and share our experience together. And going into tomorrow, I have a couple of people that I haven't talked to in 10 years. I'm going to send them a text or I may call them and just say, look, thinking of you. I want to make sure you're all right. Or, hey, happy Thanksgiving. Even if it's just that, I hope they know that I'm grateful that they're in my life. But you got to take the effort. You got to not think that it's not worth it or it's been too long or make the effort. Go ahead and try. You may rekindle a friendship that you thought was dead. Now you have something to talk about again.
Yeah, I think that's so valuable because one has to realize how you felt on certain holidays when you felt no one cared about you, you weren't part of anything. You felt like you're on the outside looking in. And how many times did you ever make a call that you weren't somewhat happy for? Right. Yeah. And again, if you make it about them and not you, it makes it easier because some people say, well, they're a pain in the ass. I get talking to them. Pretty soon they start bringing up this negative stuff or something else. But, that's the price you pay for breaking through.
Yeah.
And what if that made the difference in a person's day or even life? How many people, are on the edge that they're 1 second away from turning the light switch off of their company or their office or their warehouse because they can't do it anymore. They can't take it. And if someone just said, hey, give it another night, sleep on it, or take a week off. If you're going to give it all up, what's a week going to mean?
Yeah.
Right. Because once you turn that switch off, it ain't coming back on. And that applies to any part of your life. And it also affects everybody in your life.
Yeah.
Right. Because they're either happy for you or sad for you. depending on your situation, you know? And I'm like, hey, why allow people to worry about something I created? Right? If I'm in a bad mood around people, I can choose to change that. I may not change my circumstances, but I could hold my tongue long enough or smile. I'm not saying be unnatural, but think of someone else and say, okay, I covered them. I didn't get, you know, they ate, I didn't, but that's okay. They needed to more, or I wasn't as hungry. But it's all the perspective, it's all the context. If you consider yourself learning before you worry about earning, you'll never lose,
Yeah.
right? If all you do is say, what lesson can I pick up from this? I won, if that's the criteria. If you say, well, I put 100 hours, I made $30, again, maybe you'd need to put 100 hours to make 30,000, right? Just because you needed it or wanted it doesn't change the universe. I always find you get what you deserve. You can need and want all day long, but most of the time, if you earn it, you typically get it. Betty's here and comes back with, I don't know y'all, but I'm grateful I've crossed paths with Don in this channel with brothers and sisters. Well, you know, we're all brothers and sisters and we're all in the same boat. And that's why it's easier. When you're reaching up to somebody who's already somewhere you want to be and may never get there, why would they pick you up? I mean, what are you bringing? I mean, it's the truth. You know, everything's what's in it for them. And if you do enough what's in it for them, out of guilt or gratitude, they'll return something to you. Or you'll just say, hey, you know, first one's on me, next one's on them.
Yeah.
Right? If they want more, they got to step it up or show something. And I think that's key. But if you're always getting more coming in, if you always have more options, if someone says, I can't make it, it's like, great, I got 3 other things I needed to do, right? Versus, hey, that was my day. You know, if I don't make it, they don't make it, I'm done. I mean, why? It's just a bad situation. You know, if you were working for someone else and they were paying you, you could never make those decisions, right? If someone says, what happened to your appointment? Well, they canceled. Well, what are you doing? Wait until tomorrow? Get on the phone, get out in the car. I mean, let's do something here. And I think that's why Nike was so smart when they came up with just do it.
Yeah.
I mean, 3 words, that's the best thing anybody can do. How many people say, you know, I'm thinking of this, thinking of it. Just do something. Who cares? You know, if you don't want to go there, go there. Anything is better than nothing.
Yeah, a poor plan executed quickly is better than a brilliant plan not executed at all.
Well, and how many times you got to do it to get it? You know, they say the definition of a big shot is a little shot to keep shooting, right? That's how you become a big shot, is you do it enough times and you get better at it, you get more comfortable, and people see that, feel that comfort, that confidence. How many people have lost everything and gained it back 10 times over and done it back and forth, back and forth? Why? They're not afraid to lose, and they're not afraid to get back on their horse and ride.
And they've admitted that they've gained experience and lessons from the loss to build upon for the next time. How many millionaires and billionaires do we see in history that lost it all and then came back and made more?
Well, and the reason they could probably do it is they weren't sensitive to the resources, right? How many people, I mean, you had the guy, I mean, Sam Walton was driving the same pickup that was 30 years old.
Yeah.
He could have bought the company that made the pickup. But why? He was comfortable. That was his car. That was his truck, you know, and it did what it needed to do.
Yeah, there's I forget the guy's name now. I just blanked on him. I can picture him, a billionaire who lives in the same house that he bought in 1960.
Oh, that's probably Warren Buffett.
Warren Buffett, yes, thank you. Still drives the same car, same old small house, ranch style house, I think it is. He doesn't live beyond his means. He knows what the process and what's important to him, what it'll take.
Well, and he separated money from what he needs to what he could use to help others or to make more money for others.
Yeah.
I mean, the chairman of Coca-Cola, who's no longer the chairman, when he came to this country, he was from Cuba. He bought a house in, I think, 1962 or something. He never left that house.
Yeah.
Why? Because it was his neighborhood. It was his community. It's where he raised his kids. It's where they went to school.
Community comes back again, having those relationships.
Yeah, I lived in the same house my first house was our house, and then my daughter ended up buying it, and it's her house. So I've never really left it after 40 some years. But we had the best neighbors. I mean, everybody's door was open. The kids could go anywhere, anytime, and they were welcome. And I thought to myself, hey, if everybody's thriving, if everybody's happy, do I need an extra bedroom? Do I need something? And actually, we ended up getting our dream house, and it was unbelievable. The first day was the best day, and the day I left was one of the best days, because when you're used to humble, too much is too much.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, gosh, I got rooms I never walk in. I got ceilings that, when you need to change the smoke alarm, you need somebody with a 30-foot ladder. I mean, it's not fun. So
I laugh because that's what we're going through. We got 3 lights that need to be on there. I need a 10-foot tall ladder just to get on the top step just so I can reach it.
Yeah, and unless you're really good at stuff and you enjoy it. I got friends that they got a garage that's full of tools. They can't wait to do the next project, tear something up and rebuild it. I'm like, bring my Band-Aid box wherever I go, knowing I'm probably going to hurt something. But that's the fun of it, is knowing where you don't want to be because it's just not you. And being in places that may not be anybody else, but it is you at the time. And no different with taste. When you're in your 20s, you listen to things and hung out with people that you would never think of doing today, but you needed to go through that or outgrow it to say it doesn't work for me like it used to, but it was great when it was great.
Yeah.
So there was, too many people look at the resolution instead of the whole process. I had relationships that ended really badly, but for 30 years they were wonderful. But people will take the last element and then paint a brush with it to say, no, there was a lot of fun, there was a lot of goodness, there was a lot of value, and I'm not going to shortchange myself. So this conversation, starting with effort, seems to go everywhere and every which way, and that's why the word is only the starting point. So what are you starting to appreciate from the dialogue, from the interaction with the audience, the format?
Well, I think, going back to some of our earlier thoughts, just having the opportunity to share and understand that people are what I'm saying resonates with people. And the feedback that I get says, okay, look, A, I'm on the right track in my thinking, or B, I've got other ways to think about things. And again, what I really appreciate about this opportunity is, look, I've known you for 4 episodes on here now, and I feel like we've grown through each opportunity to understand a little bit more about each other, professionally and personally. And I'll go back to that word again, community. I mean, if it was not for LinkedIn, I never would have had this opportunity to build my community outside of the technical on screen. Now it's a voice, it's a picture, it's a movement that I can feed off of, and really, being a work from home entrepreneur, I don't interact with a whole lot of people. So this gives me an opportunity to share and discuss and have thoughts thrown at me to force me to think. It's a little selfish, I know, to say it that way, but I think that's, watching them or participating in them, I'm forced to challenge my own beliefs or challenge my own limitations to drive myself to the next level.
Well,
if that makes sense.
No, what I see there is just like referring to asking a few minutes ago. When
Yeah.
you're kind of asking in front of a whole group, you're going to get all that feedback and support in ways that you might not get if you just talk to one person about one thing, because you don't have to go too deep, just to
Yeah.
open a subject and then see who's interested in coming back with something. So I always look at the audience as a polishing wheel. Is you go into it with your best stuff and they return it with a little bit more to it, or with another question. I mean, how many times you turn a paper and the question is, well, go back and do this again and work on this area, right?
I just had that happen not an hour and a half ago.
Well, and I think you appreciate it if it is constructive and it
Yeah.
says, yeah, sure, if you allow at least the ability to hear someone before
Yeah.
denying it, justifying it. I mean, people are so much on the defense and then they rush to the offense when they could have skipped the defense and the offense and just went in neutral. And at least, just like you said, call someone, tell somebody how much you care about them. Well, when people call you or suggest something, you got to show the same interest, because they're
Yeah.
not going to call you if you say, hey, I was just in the middle of lunch, you just ruined it all by calling me right now. You would definitely take them. You would say, so sorry, it'll never happen again. I can promise you that. And that's when those words come into play. But thank you so much for being so direct, because the last thing I'll do is see someone lose their lunch, never tell you about it, never know you just did it. But again, those are the rare situations. In most cases, you'd be surprised how many people think more of you than you think of yourself, and how much good you've sprinkled all over wherever you've been to people you might not even remembered or recognized. You might have been the person over there that someone admired or saw something they valued, and now all of a sudden they copied it or integrated it with what they're doing. So help is everywhere, but how much help do you want to participate in? Both giving, both accepting. If you won't accept it like you give it, you're out of alignment again. And maybe by giving it, you feel you're qualified to accept help because you paid maybe a premium. But whatever it is, it's between you and yourself. You do it, you think about it, and you come back with something because of it. Maybe it takes 10 times falling down to decide it's time to, tie my shoelaces, and get it together. So with that said, we're over the hour. Betty says, got to dance. Happy holidays. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody. I'll be back with Kelly tomorrow. And Kelly will be here Friday too. So Kelly's putting in a lot of time and thought into that. And if there's anybody I'm most Thanksgiving towards, it's Kelly. And, in a way, we kind of look forward to it because, Thanksgiving and Christmas and all these wonderful holidays are based on sharing with your family. And this is a family of mine that I spend as much time or more every day with than my blood family, let's say. So where would I want to be but with those? And it's also a great place if you don't have anybody, that you have a family tomorrow, that me and Kelly will be serving up holiday cheer wherever we can. And, that hopefully duplicates, because one person touching another, touching more, it's a ripple that won't end. So thank you so much, Dave. Thank you, audience. Betty, you were great. Along with all these, Carl, I can just name them, but we won't because we're out of time. So come back in 23 hours. We'll try to do it again. Dave, thank you so much.